Hey y'all, what is going on? What is going on? It's your girl, Melba Pearson, Melba from Miami, Melba for Justice, also known as the Resident Legal Diva, and it is time for another Mondays with Melba. So, this episode is all about getting you election ready. Primaries in the state of Florida are coming up quickly, so I'm going to give you some key dates in order to make sure that you are election ready. So, first off, we will start with the fact that the primary elections is Tuesday, August 20th in the state of Florida. Tuesday, August 20th. So that is the day. If you want to vote on election day, that's your day. But keep that date in mind because it is very important. You either have to vote by mail or if you want to early vote, that's fine. But election day for the primaries is Tuesday, August 20th. Tuesday, August 20th. Now, couple things in advance. If you want to vote by mail, the deadline is Thursday, August 8th. Thursday, August 8th by 5 p.m. is when you need to have your paperwork in to get a vote by mail ballot. Now, you're already registered to vote. You're all good there. This is just about getting your vote by mail ballot. It's a lot easier than having to stand in line. It's super hot. Things are unpredictable. Folks have to work. Things happen. So why not get your vote by mail ballot at home where you can take your time, review the ballot, research all the candidates that are on the ballot for your choice this go round. It gives you a little bit more flexibility. So I highly recommend folks vote by mail. I have done so. I received my vote by mail ballot already in the mail. For folks who have registered to vote by mail, you should have either received your ballot or be receiving your ballot in the next coming days, but no later than the end of this week should it take for you to get your vote by mail ballot. Now, another change that came in the law with regards to vote by mail ballots. So back in the day, if you register to vote by mail, and again, this is separate and distinct from registering to vote, right? This is just about getting your ballots. So in the past, if you register to vote by mail and put in your paperwork for that, that application would last you for 2 election cycles. So let's say we're looking at 2020 to 2024. Let's say in 2020, you registered to vote by mail. You'd get a vote by mail ballot in 2020, and then you'll get a vote by mail ballot in 2022. But then in 2024, you'd have to register again. Because of a change in the law in Florida, that's no longer the case. You have to sign up to vote by mail in each and every election. Yeah. Inconvenient much? Voter suppression much? Separate issue. But be that as it may, that's the law. So make sure if you want a vote by mail ballot that you have reached out to your supervisor of elections and sent the paperwork to be able to get that. It's super easy. You can either do it online. Oftentimes they'll allow you to request a ballot by email. And then of course you could do it the old fashioned way and write them a letter. But go to your supervisor of elections website. I have some links that I'll be dropping in the comments, but my favorite website to go to is www.vote.org because basically you click on that, you can put in your zip code, you can easily find out who your representatives are, who your supervisor of elections are, the dates, all the information you need to be able to vote and to vote smart. So again, if you want to vote by mail, your deadline to get that paperwork in for that request is Thursday, August 8th by 5 p.m. And that does not count being postmarked. It has to be physically received by the supervisor of elections office by 5 p.m. on Thursday, August 8th. So important date to keep in mind. Now, as I mentioned before, the actual election is Tuesday, August 20th, but we've got a period of early voting before that. Early voting starts on Monday, August 5th and goes to Sunday, August 8th. The first week, early voting goes from 7 a.m. to about 3 p.m. The second week, early voting goes from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Then on election day, which is Tuesday, August 20th, the polls are open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Now, difference being, if you do early voting, you can go to any early voting station in your area. Doesn't matter which one. If you vote on election day, you have to go to your assigned polling place. So again, there's a lot more flexibility when you're doing early voting. You have the ability to go vote on the weekend. So again, super easy. That's another way to go about it. I personally prefer to vote by mail because what I like to do is I do my ballot and then my husband and I will go to an early voting station and drop off our ballots in person. So that way we're not messing with the mail. We are able to see our ballot go into the drop box and then we get our little I voted sticker, which always cool to have, right? So that's how we go about it. You can drop it in the mail. That's not an issue too. It is a safe and secure way to do it. This is just my personal preference. I like to drop it off and I want the sticker. So that's another thing to keep in mind as well. You've got options. Now, if you decided to sign up for a vote by mail ballot, you got it. But for some reason, you let it sit around, not a good idea, but you let it sit around and now it's election day and you're like, oops, what do I do? So you've got options. Either A, you can go and drop it off at the supervisor of elections office, not a problem. Or B, you can surrender your ballot and decide to vote in person. So what you would do is you'd go into the polling place, you hand them your vote by mail ballot, you give them your ID and everything else, and then you go ahead and do a ballot in person. And then what happens is that the poll workers destroy your vote by mail ballot, so that way you're only voting once, right? So again, no voter fraud. How about that? So those are the different options for you to be able to vote in the primary elections. You can either vote by mail, if you have until August 5th to sign up and get that ballot, or you can early vote, and you can do that basically almost right until the Sunday before election day. And then you have the actual primary day, election day, which is Tuesday, August 20th. So I've also dropped in the comments, and if you're watching on YouTube, I'll do a separate post with my endorsements for this primary session. Just to give you guys a little background on how I think through my endorsements. First off, I research all the candidates. I don't weigh in on every single race. Reason being, there's some races where I may know all of the people involved and all the people running, and I don't particularly like one over the other, right? So if I can't make a decision, I don't put it out there like, whatever. Secondly, on the races I do weigh in, I look at number one, what their values are. Number two, what their platform is. And is that consistent with what prior statements they've made in the past? But also, I look at something a little different, especially this cycle. I'm really much more cognizant about it, is making sure we're building a bench. So in some of the races, there's a more seasoned candidate, and I may have picked a more green candidate, right? Like someone who has not really been in the political scene. Why? Because number one, I think we need to really be intentional about building a bench. And I'm not going to really comment on this, what's going on as to whether or not President Biden should step aside or if he should continue to run for president in this coming election. The reason why we're in that situation is because we as the Democrats didn't build a bench, right? We don't have a plan B. And so we were saying, oh my gosh, the only person to save democracy back in 2020 was Joe Biden at the time. And that's who we went with. Okay. Now, whether that was rightfully so, wrongfully so, listen, that ship has sailed. But too often as a party, we're not focused on making sure we're encouraging young folks to run for office, to take on these tough issues. And too often we keep saying, oh, this situation is messy, or we're in a tight position in this particular office. We need to go back to a more seasoned person. Well, how is anyone else supposed to learn? You learn by doing, you learn by being in the fire. So I think that there's never a good time. There's always going to be something going on, a troubling situation. If we want to really build a bench, we have to be intentional to make sure that we have a bench of new candidates who reflect our values, who are ready to do the hard work and are ready to take over the fight. Because, hey, a lot of us are tired now, okay? Like, you got to hand the baton off to someone else and not hold on to power until the Lord calls you home. I mean, come on already. So that is part of my thinking in terms of how I picked different candidates and then decided to endorse them. So I'm going to be sharing that resource. And also, I have a playlist on YouTube that has all of the candidates that I've interviewed thus far that are running this cycle. Some of the folks are not on the primary ballot. Like, for instance, Marisol Centeno, she is running for property appraiser. She does not have a Democratic opponent, so therefore she's only going to be in the general. She is not going to be on my endorsement list for the primaries because she's not going to be on your ballot. But be that as it may, you can go onto YouTube and watch the videos of the different candidates I've interviewed, again, just to give you a sense of their platforms and what their intentions are when they win office. I encourage everyone to do your own research. Again, you can look at my selections. You're feel free to agree, disagree, whatever the case may be, but also do your own research, because don't just take my word for it. You may see something that might give you pause about a particular candidate, or you may see something that resonates better with you with a different candidate. All good. But I just want folks to be active and engaged voters. So we're not just like rubber stamping things and being like, well, that's how it's always been, so that's the way it should always be. Let's get radical and let's really push for change. All right, y'all. Great chatting with all of you today, and I will see you next time. Take care. Bye.